Elmer Fudd. Elmer J. Fudd is a fictional cartoon character in the Warner Brothers Looney Tunes, Merrie Melodies series, and an adversary of Bugs Bunny. He has one of the more disputed origins in the Warner Brothers cartoon pantheon. His aim is to hunt bugs, but he usually ends up seriously injuring himself and other antagonizing characters. He speaks in an unusual way, replacing his R's and L's with W's, so he always refers to Bugs Bunny as a scwewy wabbit. Elmer's signature catchphrase is, "Shhh, be vewy quiet, I'm hunting wabbits," as well as his trademark laughter. The best-known Elmer Fudd cartoons include Chuck Jones' work What's Opera, Doc?, the Rossini parody Rabbit of Seville, and the Hunting trilogy of Rabbit Season, Duck Season shorts with Fudd, Bugs Bunny, and Daffy Duck. An earlier character named Egghead set some of Elmer's aspects before the character's more conspicuous features were set. Egghead Tex Avery introduced a new character in his cartoon short Egghead Rides Again, released July 17, 1937. Egghead initially was depicted as having a bulbous nose, funny, eccentric clothing, a voice like Joe Penner and an egg-shaped head. Many cartoon historians believe that Egghead evolved into Elmer over a period of a couple of years. However, animation historian Michael Barrier asserts, the Egghead-Elmer story is actually a little messy, my sense being that most of the people involved, whether they were making the films or publicizing them, not only had trouble telling the characters apart but had no idea why they should bother trying. Egghead made his second appearance in 1937's Little Red Walking Hood and then in 1938 teamed with Warner Brothers' newest cartoon star Daffy Duck in Daffy Duck and Egghead. Egghead continued to make appearances in the Warner cartoons in 1938, such as in The Isle of Pingo Pongo and A Lad in Baghdad. In a few, there was, Egghead made his entrance riding a motor scooter with the words, Elmer Fudd, Peacemaker, displayed on the side, the first on-screen use of that name. Egghead shifts from having a Mo Howard haircut to being bald, and wears a brown derby, a baggy suit, and a high-collared shirt. Egghead returned decades later in the compilation film Daffy Duck's Quackbusters. More recently, he also made a cameo appearance at the end of Looney Tunes, Back in Action, and was also given in his own story, which starred him alongside Pete Puma in the Looney Tunes comic book. One animation history suggests that the Egghead character was based on Ripley's Believe It or Not cartoonist and entertainer Robert Ripley, while the name Elmer Fudd might have been a reference to the then-popular hunter Elmer Keith. Egghead has the distinction of being the first recurring character created for Leon Schlesinger's Merrie Melodies series, which had previously contained only one-shot characters, although during the harmonizing era, Foxy, Goopy Gear, and Piggy each appeared in a few Merrie Melodies. One of Egghead's final appearances is A Day at the Zoo, which ends with Egghead being swallowed by a lion he had been taunting. Whether intentional or coincidental, this was the end for the Egghead character. In the 1939 cartoon Dangerous Dan McFoo, a new voice actor, Arthur Q. Bryan, was hired to provide the voice of the hero dog character. It was in this cartoon that the popular milksop voice of Elmer Fudd was created. Elmer Fudd has since been the chief antagonistic force in the majority of the Bugs Bunny cartoons, initiating one of the most famous rivalries in the history of American cinema. Barrier notes, Elmer Fudd was not a modified version of his fellow Warner Brothers character Egghead, and that the two characters were always distinct. That was evidenced by Elmer's being identified in a Warner publicity sheet for Cinderella Meets Fella as Egghead's brother. Elmer emerges in 1940. Egghead Elmer's appearance was refined, giving him a chin and a less bulbous nose, and Arthur Q. Bryan's Dan McFoo voice in what most people consider Elmer Fudd's first true appearance, a Chuck Jones short entitled Elmer's Candid Camera. The rabbit drives Elmer insane. Later that year, he appeared in Friz Freling's Confederate Honey and The Hardship of Miles Standish, where his voice and Egghead-like appearance were still the same. Jones would use this Elmer one more time, in 1941's Elmer's Pet Rabbit. Its other title character is labeled as Bugs Bunny, but is also identical to his counterpart in camera. In the interim, the two starred in A Wild Hare. Bugs appears with a carrot, New York accent, and "What's up, Doc?" catchphrase all in place for the first time, although the voice and physique are as yet somewhat off. Elmer has a better voice, a trimmer figure and his familiar hunting clothes. He is much more recognizable as the Elmer Fudd of later cartoons than Bugs is here. In his earliest appearances, Elmer actually likes wabbits, either attempting to take photos of Bugs or adopting Bugs as his pet. The rascally rabbit has the poor Fudd so perplexed that there is little wonder as to why Elmer would become a hunter and in some cases actually proclaim, "I hate whittle gway wabbits," after pumping buckshot down a rabbit hole. Elmer's role in these two films, that of would-be hunter, dupe and foil for Bugs, would remain his main role forever after, and although Bugs Bunny was called upon to outwit many more worthy opponents, Elmer somehow remained Bugs' classic nemesis, despite his legendary gullibility, small size, short temper, and shorter attention span. In Rabbit Fire, he declares himself vegetarian, hunting for sport only. Elmer was usually cast as a hapless big game hunter, armed with a double-barreled shotgun and creeping through the woods, hunting wabbits. In a few cartoons, though, he assumed a completely different persona, a wealthy industrialist type, occupying a luxurious penthouse, or, in one episode involving a role reversal, a sanitarium which Bugs would of course somehow find his way into. In Doggone People, he had an ordinary office job working for demanding boss, Mr. Sewabtwe. In another cartoon he appeared to work in an office and had a dog he called Wover Boy, whom he took hunting, though Bugs did not appear. Several episodes featured Elmer differently. One has Bugs Bunny relating his life story to a biographer, and recalling a time which was a downturn for the movie business. Elmer Fudd is a well-known entertainer who, looking for a new partner for his act, sees Bugs Bunny who, like Bugs, are also out of work. Elmer and Bugs do a one-joke act cross-country, with Bugs dressed like a pinhead, and when he does not know the answer to a joke, Elmer gives it and hits him with a pie in the face. Bugs begins to tire of this gag and pulls a surprise on Fudd, answering the joke correctly and bopping Elmer with a mallet, which prompts the man to point his rifle at Bugs. The bunny asks nervously, "Hey, what's up, Doc?" which results in a huge round of applause from the audience. Bugs tells Elmer they may be onto something, and Elmer, with the vaudevillian's instinct of sticking with a gag that catches on, nods that they should reuse it. According to this account, the common Elmer as Hunter episodes are entirely staged. One episode where Bugs lost in the hunting was Hairbrush. Here, Elmer has been committed to an insane asylum because he believes he is a rabbit. Bugs Bunny enters Fudd's room and Elmer bribes him with carrots, then leaves the way the real rabbit entered. Bugs acts surprisingly naïve, assuming Elmer just wanted to go outside for a while. Elmer's psychiatrist arrives, and thinking Fudd's delusion has affected his appearance, drugs Bugs and conditions him into believing that he is Elmer Fudd, after which Bugs starts wearing hunting clothes and acting like Elmer, hunting the rabbit-costumed Fudd, who is in turn acting like Bugs. Their hunt is cut short when Bugs is arrested by a government agent as Elmer Fudd is wanted for tax evasion. After Bugs is hauled away trying to explain that the rabbit is Elmer Fudd, Fudd breaks the fourth wall and tells the audience, "I may be a scwewy wabbit, but I'm not going to Alcatraz," as he hops away as if he had planned the whole thing. Elmer Fudd has occasionally appeared in other costumes, notably as Cupid. He tries to convince Bugs about love, but Bugs is reluctant, thinking to himself, "Don't you look like some guy who's always after me?" and pictures the Elmer in Hunter's clothes. The Cupid Elmer plots to get even with Bugs, using his love arrows to make Bugs fall in love with an artificial rabbit at a dog track. Elmer also appeared in this form opposite Daffy Duck in The Stupid Cupid. The Bugs-Elmer partnership was so familiar to audiences that in a late 1950s cartoon, Bugs Bonnets, a character study is made of what happens to the relationship between the two when they each accidentally don a different selection of hats. The result is comic mayhem, a steady game of one-upmanship that ultimately leads to matrimony. Fat Elmer. For a short time in the 1941-1942 season, Elmer's appearance was modified again, for 5 cartoons: Wabbit Tuable, The Wacky Wabbit, The Wabbit Who Came to Supper, Any Bonds Today, and Fresh Hair. He became a heavy-set, beer-bellied character, patterned after Arthur. Hugh, Brian's real-life appearance, and still chasing Bugs. However, audiences did not accept a fat Fudd, so ultimately the slimmer version returned for good. This time period also saw a temporary change in Elmer's relationship with Bugs Bunny. Instead of being the hunter, Elmer was the victim of unprovoked pestering by Bugs. In Wabbit 2able, Bugs plays a number of gags on Elmer, advising the audience, "I do dis kind o' stuff to him all twowda picture." Another short, The Wacky Wabbit, finds Elmer focused on prospecting for gold which would be used to fund the World War II effort. Elmer sings a variation of the old Prospectors tune, "Oh, Susanna," made just for this cartoon, with Bugs joining in just before starting to hassle Elmer. He made a later appearance in an episode of the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries as a Russian version with a simple name, Boris, who owns another comedy club in Russia. Elmer speaking nearly always vocalized consonants and pronouncing them as instead when he would talk in his slightly raspy voice. This trait was prevalent in the Elmer's Candid Camera and Elmer's Pet Rabbit cartoons, where the writers would give him exaggerated lines such as, "My, that weowie was a delicious weg of WAMB," to further exaggerate his qualities as a harmless nebbish. That characteristic seemed to fit his somewhat timid and childlike persona. And it worked. The writers often gave him lines filled with those letters, such as doing Shakespeare's Romeo as "What white thwo yonda window be weeks," or Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries as "KIWW the Wabbit, KIWW the Wabbit, KIWW the Wabbit," or The Beautiful BWUE Danube by Johann Stewos, Stage Door Cartoons line, "Oh, you WCW Ossing Wabbit. You tweetuaus misquent," or the name of actress Olivia de Havilland. Part of the joke is that Elmer is presumably incapable of pronouncing his own first name correctly. Occasionally Elmer would properly pronounce an R or L sound, depending on whether or not it was vital for the audience to understand what the word was. Usually, Elmer mispronounces the R and L by substituting the sound of W. Later appearances Elmer Fudd made appearances in several television specials in the 1970s and 1980s, and some cameo roles in two of the Looney Tunes feature film compilations. Elmer made a brief headshot cameo appearance in the final scene of Who Framed Roger Rabbit with other famous characters. Elmer would also appear frequently on the animated series Tiny Toon Adventures as a teacher at Acme University, where he was the idol and favorite teacher of Elmira Duff, the slightly deranged animal lover who resembles Elmer in basic head design, name and lack of intellect. On the other hand, a younger version of him makes a single appearance in the episode Plucky's Dastardly Deed, and is named Egghead Jr., the smartest kid in class. Elmer also made cameos on Animaniacs, one in Turkey Jerky, another in the Pinky and the Brain short, Don't Tread on Us. Elmer also had a guest starring appearance on Hysteria, in the episode The Teddy Roosevelt Show, in a sketch where he portrayed Gutzon Borglum. This sketch depicts Elmer Gutzon's construction of Mount Rushmore, accompanied by Borglum's son Lincoln, portrayed by Loud Kiddington. Elmer made another appearance on Hysteria, this time in his traditional role, during a sketch where the bald eagle trades places with the turkey during Thanksgiving weekend, featured in the episode Americana. Fudd also appeared on the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries in the first season episode A Ticket to Crime as Detective Sam Fudd. At the end he took off his clothes and turned into Elmer. Elmer appears as part of the Toon Squad team in Space Jam. In one part of the game he and Yosemite Sam shoot down the teeth of one of the Monstars dressed in black suits while Miserlou is heard in the background. Elmer took on a more villainous role in Looney Tunes, Back in Action, in which he is a secret agent for the Acme Corporation. In his scene, Elmer chases Bugs and Daffy through the paintings in the Louvre Museum, taking on the different art styles as they do so. At the end, Elmer forgets to change back to his normal style after jumping out of the pointillist painting Sunday Afternoon on the island of La Grande Jatte by Georges Seurat, allowing Bugs to easily disintegrate Elmer by blowing a fan at him. A 4-year-old version of Elmer was featured in the Baby Looney Tunes episode A Bully for Bugs, where he kept taking all of Bugs' candy, and also bullied the rest of his friends. He was also shown with short blonde hair. He appeared in most of the songs. An even more villainous Elmer appeared in 2 episodes of Duck Dodgers as the Mother Fudd, an alien who would spread a disease that caused all affected by it to stand around laughing like Elmer. In Lunatics Unleashed, his descendant, Electro J. Fudd, tried to prove himself the universe's greatest hunter by capturing Ace Bunny, but settled for Danger Duck instead. Elmer himself also makes an appearance in the form of a photo which shows he presumably died at the hands of a giant squirrel. In December 2009, Elmer made an appearance in a Geico commercial where the director tells him to say rabbits instead of wabbits. He was again voiced by Billy West. Elmer Fudd appears in the Looney Tunes show voiced by Billy West. Portrayed as a wealthy businessman coming home after a hard day's work in the Merrie Melodies part of the episode Best Friends, he sings about his love of GW'd cheese sandwiches. He later had a brief cameo appearance in Fish and Visitors as a weather forecaster, briefly exclaiming about the rainy weather and doing his famous chuckle at the end. In Working Duck, Elmer Fudd appeared as a newsman where he reports that Daffy Duck was fired from his position as a security guard after falling asleep during a nighttime bank robbery where $10 million were stolen. Later on, Elmer Fudd reports that Enormocorp went out of business due to the worst business decision in the history of business decisions caused by its CEO Daffy Duck, where he went with the proceed as planned choice instead of the delay the merger choice when he mistook Pete Puma as the new Muffin Man. As a result of this, Elmer mentioned that 10,000 of its workers are now out of a job and states that experts fear that the world economy could collapse. Elmer also states that disgraced CEO Daffy Duck could not be reached for a comment. In A Christmas Carol, Elmer Fudd reports on Foghorn Leghorn's plans to end the heat wave on Christmas. Elmer Fudd later joins the other characters in the Christmas song called Christmas Rules at the end of the episode. In Dear John, Elmer Fudd reports on Daffy Duck winning a spot on the city council. Elmer Fudd later reports on Daffy Duck's apparent death where he supposedly lost control of his parade float and drove into the St. Bastian River. In The Black Widow, Elmer Fudd reports on the theft of the Hillhurst diamond from the museum caused by someone called the Black Widow. On June 8, 2011, Elmer starred in the 3D short Daffy's Rhapsody with Daffy Duck. That short was going to precede the film Happy Feet 2, but was instead shown with Journey to The Mysterious Island. Elmer Fudd appears in Looney Tunes Rabbits Run, voiced again by Billy West. He appears as a spy working for the Mexican general Foghorn Leghorn. In the 2017 DC Comics Looney Tunes crossover books, an alternate version of Elmer Fudd was created for a story in which the character was designed more for the DC universe and was pitted against Batman in the Batman Elmer Fudd special. In the story, Elmer is a bounty hunter that originated from the countryside before he moved to Gotham to make ends meet. He considered putting the shotgun away for good when he fell in love with Silver St. Cloud, but she was killed by hitman Bugs the bunny. He goes to a bar called Porky's to kill Bugs. Bugs confesses to killing Silver, but avoids death by telling Elmer that Bruce Wayne hired him to do it. Elmer believes Bugs as Bruce was Silver's former lover, and shoots Bruce at a party for vengeance. Batman confronts Elmer in his apartment and defeats the gunman in a fight, where Elmer tells Batman about Silver's death and Bugs. Elmer and Batman return to Porky's and take out most of the crowd before confronting Bugs. The three are shocked to find Silver in the bar herself, where she revealed that she left Bruce and Elmer because of their dangerous lifestyles and had Bugs fake her death. The story ends with all three of the men requesting a glass of carrot juice from Porky. In the issue's backup story, Bugs, Elmer, and Batman reenact the famous Rabbit Season, Duck Season sketch with Batman replacing Daffy as Bugs tells Elmer it's Bat Season. After getting shot by Elmer too many times, Batman takes Bugs' advice and makes it Robin Season, causing Elmer to pursue the Dark Knight's sidekicks instead. Portrayal. Fudd was originally voiced by radio actor Arthur Q. Bryan, but 3 times in Bryan's lifetime the voice was provided by the versatile Mel Blanc. In To Duck or Not to Duck, Blanc spoke as Fudd, saying that in The Scarlet Pumpernickel, only a single line was needed, and bringing in Bryan was not cost-effective, and in What's Opera, Doc, Elmer's furious scream, Smog, was dubbed by Mel Blanc, although Bryan had voiced the rest of the part. Later, during the Musicians' Union strike of 1958, another artist did the voice for Elmer's co-starring appearance in Pre-Hysterical Hair. There is no documented reason for Bryan's absence, leaving some fans to speculate that he refused to cross the picket lines. In In 1959, Brian died aged 60, and Hal Smith was selected to replace him as Elmer, but after just 2 cartoons were recorded by the new actor, and another was made in which Fudd has no lines and therefore no voice, the character was soon retired. Although in more recent years other voice actors have alternated as Elmer's voice, Brian's characterization remains the definitive one. He was never credited on-screen, because Blanc had a clause in his contract that required him to receive a screen credit and, perhaps inadvertently, denied the same to other voice performers. Blanc would take on the role regularly in the 1970s and 1980s, supplying Elmer's voice for new footage in compilation feature films and similar TV specials, as well as some all-new specials. He admitted in his autobiography that he found the voice difficult to get right, never quite making it his own. In Speechless, the famous lithograph issued following Blanc's death, Elmer is not shown among the characters bowing their heads in tribute to Blanc. Other voice actors besides Arthur Q. Bryan, other actors have voiced Elmer. In popular culture, in the film Fletch Lives, the eponymous character gives his name as Elmer Fudd Gantry.